Formal incident briefings. Verified video proof. Direct accountability. Welcome to Bodycam Incident Reports.
Step out of the crew line. Now.
I am crew? Senior Tech Airman, scan my badge.
You don't look like crew. You fit a description.
The only description I fit is federally cleared.
Get your hands off me.
You are on camera.
Officer Garrett Miller had patrolled the T4 terminal at Chicago O'Hare International Airport for 15 years. He was a fixture of the airport police division, a man who wore his badge like a shield and his gun like a scepter. In those 15 years, he had been the subject of 22 internal affairs complaints, 22 separate instances where travelers of color, specifically Latino women and Middle Eastern men, reported being harassed, aggressively questioned, or detained without cause. Every single complaint had been washed away. The union called him proactive. His sergeant called him an instinctive cop. The airport administration called him a necessary deterrent in a post-9/11 world. No one called him what he actually was, a man who weaponized his authority to humiliate people who didn't look like they belonged in his version of America. On a rainy Thursday morning in October, Garrett Miller's 15-year streak of unchecked aggression was about to crash into an immovable object. Elena Rodriguez was not just a flight attendant. She was a legend within Meridian Airlines. With 24 years of seniority, she was one of the highest-ranking cabin crew members in the company's history. She was a check airman, the person who evaluates other flight attendants. She trained Purers on emergency evacuations, medical triage, and conflict de-escalation. She spoke 4 languages fluently. She had delivered a baby at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic. She had subdued an unruly passenger who tried to open the emergency exit mid-flight. That morning, Elena was deadheading, flying as a passenger to London to conduct a surprise evaluation on a struggling crew. Because she was technically flying as a passenger, but on company business, she wasn't in her standard uniform. She was wearing a tailored navy blazer, dark denim jeans, a silk scarf, and leather boots. She looked impeccable. She looked wealthy. And to Officer Garrett Miller, a Latina woman looking that good in the priority lane didn't mean executive crew member. It meant drug mule, escort, or fraud. That toxic assumption would ignite a firestorm that would cost the city millions and Miller's career and rewrite the security protocols for every major airport in the United States. Before we dive into the details of this confrontation, I want to ask, have you ever been profiled while traveling? Have you ever had your credentials questioned because you didn't look the part? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that authority should always be checked by accountability, hit that subscribe button. We are dedicated to exposing the stories the system tries to bury. Chicago O'Hare is a city unto itself. It is a sprawling labyrinth of steel glass and tension where hundreds of thousands of lives intersect for brief, stressful moments. Terminal 4 was the international hub, a place of high stakes and tight schedules. The security checkpoint was the choke point, the filter through which humanity had to pass. To the far left of the chaos of general boarding stood the KCM known crew member lane. It was a privilege granted to pilots and flight attendants who had undergone extensive FBI background checks. It allowed them to bypass the long lines and invasive screening of the TSA checkpoints. It was built on trust verification and efficiency. Elena Rodriguez approached the KCM podium at 7:15 a.m. She was focused. She had a briefing in London in 9 hours. She had a crew to evaluate. She had a heavy mental load reviewing the files of the flight attendants she would be grading. She held her KCM badge and her passport in her left hand, her phone in her right. Elena was 48 years old. She carried herself with the specific, rigid posture of someone who has spent 2 decades balancing on moving aircraft floors. She knew every regulation, every loophole, and every security protocol in the Federal Aviation Administration's handbook. She had written parts of the training manual Meridian Airlines used. She was not someone to be trifled with. Officer Miller was leaning against the wall near the KCM podium. He was sipping a lukewarm coffee, his eyes scanning the crowd with a predatory boredom. He saw Elena approaching. His brain, wired by years of reinforced prejudice and lack of consequences, made a series of snap judgments. Latina female. Late 40s. Expensive clothes, but no uniform. Carrying a Louis Vuitton tote, not a standard crew roller bag. Confident walk too confident. She's faking it. She's trying to slip through the crew lane to avoid the scanners. Probably carrying cash or narcotics. He didn't see a professional. He saw a target. He stepped away from the wall, moving with the heavy, deliberate gait of a man who knows people will move out of his way. He planted himself directly in front of the KCM scanner, blocking Elena's path to the TSA agent who manned the machine. "Ma'am, step out of the line." Elena stopped. She didn't flinch. She was used to turbulence. "Excuse me." "You heard me. Step out. This is for flight crews only." Elena sighed internally. She had dealt with this before. Usually it was a rookie TSA agent confused by the lack of uniform. It was annoying but solvable. "I am flight crew officer. I'm deadheading to London for Meridian. I'm a Czech airman." She held up her badge. It was the standard KCM issue holographic secure linked directly to the national database. Miller didn't look at the badge. He looked at her face. He looked at her hoop earrings. He looked at her boots. "Czech airmen never heard of it. And I know for a fact Meridian crew wear navy blue skirts and scarves. You're wearing jeans. We are allowed to wear business casual when deadheading or conducting evaluations. That is company policy and TSA approved. If you let me scan my badge, the system will confirm my identity and my flight status." Miller smirked. It was a cruel, small expression. "I'm not letting you scan anything. We've got a lot of people trying to game the system lately. Mules dressing up like rich ladies to bypass the X-ray. You fit the description." The air around them seemed to freeze. "You fit the description." Elena felt the heat rise in her chest, but her voice remained ice cold. "What description is that, officer? The description of a 24-year veteran of the skies, or the description of a Hispanic woman who you think couldn't possibly hold a senior management position?" Miller's face darkened. He wasn't used to pushback. He was used to fear. "Watch your mouth. I'm an officer of the law. I'm telling you that you are not using this lane. You are going to go to the back of the general boarding line, you are going to take off those boots, and you are going to put that fancy bag through the X-ray like everyone else. Or we can go to the station and I can verify your identity the long way, which could take 3-4 hours. You'll miss your flight either way." It was a power play, pure and simple. He was daring her to challenge him, knowing that the threat of missing the flight usually forced compliance. But Elena Rodriguez wasn't just a passenger. She was an evaluator. Her entire job was spotting protocol violations, and she was looking at the biggest violation of her career. "I am not going to general boarding. I have a federal right to use this access point as a vetted crew member. You are obstructing federal commerce and harassing a flight crew member. I am asking you one more time to step aside and let the TSA agent scan my badge." Miller laughed. "You're refusing a lawful order." "It is not a lawful order, it is harassment." Miller stepped closer, invading her personal space. He put his hand on his belt near his handcuffs. "Last warning. Turn around or you're leaving in cuffs." By now, the terminal had gone quiet around them. Other pilots and flight attendants in the queue were watching. Travelers in the general line were craning their necks. And then the phones came out. A young woman in a university hoodie started recording. A businessman in a suit held up his iPad. A group of teenagers pointed their lenses at Miller. Miller saw them. Usually this was the moment a smart officer would de-escalate. But Miller wasn't smart. He was arrogant. He believed the badge made him invincible. He believed that even on camera he could spin this as suspicious behavior and maintaining security. "You want a show?" Miller said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "This individual is refusing security protocols. She claims to be crew but has no uniform and refuses to follow instructions." Elena turned to the TSA agent sitting behind the podium, a young man who looked terrified. "Sir, please scan my badge. Just scan it. It will resolve this in 2 seconds." The TSA agent reached for the scanner, but Miller slammed his hand down on the podium. "Don't touch that. She's not cleared." "He doesn't work for you, officer." Elena said, her voice projecting with the authority of someone who commanded cabins of 300 people. "He works for the Transportation Security Administration. You are airport police. You do not have the authority to override the KCM database unless you have probable cause." "What is your probable cause?" My probable cause is you're acting disorderly, you're aggressive, and you're failing to comply. I am asserting my rights. That is not aggression. That's it. Miller grabbed Elena's arm. The crowd gasped. Elena didn't pull away. She knew that pulling away would be labeled resisting arrest. She went rigid. Unhand me. I am a crew member on active duty status. You are assaulting me. I'm detaining you for disorderly conduct and interfering with security operations. Miller twisted her arm behind her back, forcing her to drop her bag. He shoved her toward the wall. You think you're special? You think you can just walk through here because you bought a blazer? My badge, Elena shouted, gesturing with her head toward the floor where her credentials had fallen. Scan the damn badge. I don't need to scan it, it's fake. Suddenly a deep voice boomed through the checkpoint. Officer, let her go, now. Captain James Ford, a senior 777 pilot for Meridian Airlines, wearing his full uniform hat. 4 stripes on his shoulder, massive presence, stepped out of the line. He had flown with Elena for a decade. He knew her better than he knew some of his own family. Miller paused, looking at the captain. Back off, Captain. This doesn't concern you. This woman is posing as crew. Posing? Ford's face was red with fury. That is Elena Rodriguez. She is the senior check airman for our London route. She has more flight hours than you have hours on this planet. Let her go. She's not in uniform. Miller stammered, his grip loosening slightly, but his ego refusing to yield. She's deadheading. It's standard protocol. Ford stepped into Miller's face. You have her arm twisted behind her back like a criminal. You are making a mistake that is going to cost you your pension. Look at the badge on the floor. Miller looked down. The badge face up showed Elena's photo. It showed the hologram. It showed the Meridian logo. The TSA agent, emboldened by the captain's presence, reached over the podium, picked up a handheld scanner, and aimed it at the badge on the floor. Beep! The screen flashed green. Huge green letters cleared. Known crew member, Rodriguez Elena. Status active. The silence that followed was deafening. Captain Ford pointed at the screen. Green light. She's cleared. She is who she said she was. Now take your hands off my crew member. Miller released her. Elena stumbled slightly, rubbing her shoulder. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She adjusted her blazer. She smoothed her hair. She picked up her bag. And then she turned to Officer Miller with a look of absolute terrifying calm. I want your badge number. I want your supervisor. And I want the airport duty manager, right now. Miller's face was pale. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the sinking realization of what he had just done in front of 50 witnesses and 5 cameras. Look, ma'am, I was just doing my job. You have to understand we're under high alert. You weren't in uniform. It was a reasonable mistake. Reasonable, Tsai. Elena stepped closer to him. She was shorter than him, but in that moment she towered over him. You called me a mule. You said I fit a description. You physically assaulted me. You ignored a federal database because your ego couldn't handle a Latina woman telling you the rules. That is not a mistake, officer. That is prejudice, and I am going to make sure everyone knows it. Let's not make a big deal out of this, Miller said, his voice dropping to a whisper, glancing at the phones recording them. I can let you through now. Go ahead, catch your flight. Oh, I'm going to catch my flight, Elena said. But first you're going to call your sergeant. I don't think that's necessary. I do. The shout came from the crowd, the woman with the phone. We all do. We saw what you did. Yeah, call him, another passenger yelled. Miller was trapped. The hierarchy he loved, the authority he worshipped it, was turning against him. 10 minutes later, Sergeant Davies arrived. He saw the crowd. He saw the captain standing guard over Elena. He saw Miller looking sweaty and defensive. What's the situation here? Davies asked. Elena spoke before Miller could invent a narrative. Officer Miller physically detained me, refused to scan my federal credentials, accused me of using a fake ID, and twisted my arm, resulting in potential injury, because in his words I fit the description of a drug mule. I am a senior check airman. The TSA agent scanned my badge. It is green. I want to file a formal assault complaint. Davies looked at Miller. Is this true? Did you refuse to scan her? She was non-compliant, Sarge. She wouldn't step out of the line. Because I was in the right line, Elena countered. And the physical contact. Davies asked. I escorted her. He twisted her arm behind her back. Captain Ford interjected. I witnessed it. 50 people witnessed it. It was assault. Davies closed his eyes for a second. He knew Miller. He knew the complaints. He knew this day was coming. Officer Miller, surrender your post. Go to the admin office. We will discuss this there. Sarge, come on. Now! Miller unclipped his radio. He walked away, the crowd jeering him as he left. Elena made her flight. She boarded the plane, her shoulder throbbing, her spirit shaken but unbroken. She sat in her seat, took a deep breath, and opened her laptop. She didn't review the crew evaluations. She wrote an email to the CEO of Meridian Airlines. She wrote an email to her union representative. And she wrote an email to the best civil rights attorney in Chicago. By the time she landed in London 7 hours later, the video had 12 million views. The thumbnail showed Miller's hand on her arm, her face grimacing in pain with the caption, "Airport cop assaults flight attendant for looking like a mule." The comments were a landslide of outrage. "I've seen that cop before. He harassed my cousin last year. She's a Czech airman. That's like a general in the airline world. He messed with the wrong one. Why do they always assume we're criminals? She was dressed better than him." The hashtags #Justice for Elena and Fire Officer Miller were trending globally. Meridian Airlines released a statement within hours. "We are appalled by the treatment of our senior purser, Elena Rodriguez. We stand fully behind her and are launching an immediate investigation into security protocols at O'Hare. No employee should face harassment for doing their job." But the statement wasn't enough. Elena didn't want an apology. She wanted change. She filed a federal lawsuit against the City of Chicago, the Department of Aviation, and Officer Garrett Miller personally. The charges were extensive. Violation of the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure assault. Battery, false imprisonment, and violation of the Civil Rights Act. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was devastating for the police department. Elena's lawyers demanded Miller's disciplinary record. They fought the city's attempts to seal the files. When the judge ordered them released, the public saw the truth. 22 prior complaints. Sept 2019. Detained a black female pilot for 45 minutes because he thought her uniform looked like a costume. Jan 2021 searched the bag of a Latino surgeon dumping sterile equipment on the floor, claiming he smelled marijuana. No drugs found. March 2023. Tackled an Asian American college student running for a gate, claiming he was fleeing arrest. The student was late for a flight home to a funeral. Pattern, practice, policy. Miller wasn't a bad apple. He was a rotten tree that the department had been watering for 15 years. During her deposition, Elena sat across from the city attorneys. They tried to rattle her. "Ms. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you were aggressive, that you raised your voice?" "I was assertive," Elena corrected. "There is a difference. When a man speaks with authority about his job, he is a leader. When a woman does it, she is aggressive. When a Latina woman does it, she is dangerous. Officer Miller didn't stop me because I was loud. He stopped me because he looked at my skin and my clothes and decided I was a criminal. He decided I didn't deserve to be in the crew lane." "But didn't you resist?" "I resisted his assumption that I was less than a citizen. I resisted his attempt to strip me of my dignity, and I would do it again." The city settled before trial. They couldn't risk a jury seeing the video and hearing the testimony. The settlement was historic $5.5 million. Officer Garrett Miller was fired and stripped of his pension benefits due to gross misconduct and violation of civil rights. The Department of Aviation was forced to implement a new zero-tolerance policy for profiling. Most importantly, a new federal oversight rule was created, informally known as the Rodriguez Rule. It mandated that if a KCM badge scans, green law enforcement cannot detain a crew member without an active warrant or immediate visible threat to life. Discretionary gut feeling stops were banned. Elena donated $2 million of the settlement to a scholarship fund for Latinas entering aviation and aerospace careers. She didn't quit her job. She went back to flying. 6 months after the incident, Elena was walking through O'Hare again. She was in full uniform this time, navy suit scarf wings pinned to her chest. She approached the KCM checkpoint. There was a new officer there, a young woman. She saw Elena coming. She didn't block the path. She didn't sneer. "Good morning, Captain," the officer said, mistaking the rank but respecting the aura. "Badge ready?" Elena smiled. "Ready." She scanned. The light turned green. "Have a safe flight, ma'am." "Thank you," Elena said. She walked through the gate, her head high, the sound of her heels clicking on the linoleum like the beat of a drum. So what is the lesson here? The lesson isn't just about bad cops. It's about the danger of the single story. Officer Miller looked at Elena and had a single story in his head. Latina plus cash plus access equals crime. He was so committed to that story that he ignored the evidence right in front of him. He ignored the badge. He ignored the calm demeanor. He ignored the law. Power without humility is a weapon. When we give people a badge and a gun, we are trusting them to protect us, not to police our existence based on their prejudices. But the bigger lesson is about the importance of knowing your worth and standing your ground. Elena Rodriguez could have backed down. She could have gone to the general line to avoid a scene. She could have let him humiliate her to keep the peace. But she knew that peace purchased at the price of dignity is no peace at all. She knew that if she let him do it to her, a senior Czech airman, he would definitely do it to the young new flight attendant traveling alone next week. She fought not for herself, but for the principle that she belonged there. Bias thrives in silence. It thrives when we say, "It was just a misunderstanding." It dies when we turn on the lights, pull out the cameras, and demand that the system follow its own rules. If you are in a position of authority, a manager, a teacher, a police officer, a security guard, ask yourself, when I make a decision about someone, am I reacting to who they are, or who I assume they are? Am I enforcing the rules, or am I enforcing my bias? And if you are ever the one standing in that line being told you don't belong in a room, you earned the right to enter. Remember Elena Rodriguez. Stand tall, know your rights, and never ever let someone else's limited imagination define your reality. Do you think the Rodriguez rule should be applied to all security interactions, not just flight crews? Should police officers be personally liable for civil rights settlements rather than the taxpayers footing the bill? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This story matters because it happens every day in airports, in lobbies, in hospitals, and in boardrooms. We share these stories to remind you that you have a voice. Use it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.
This incident file is closed. For more objective footage breakdowns, please like and subscribe. Thank you for supporting Bodycam Incident Reports.